been a colossal failure, I think everybody in my audience would admit. And
our last poll shows most cops feel that way, too.
Yeah. Narcissist in chief, as they call him. You've actually written an article about some of the work that you do, Jim, is regarding serial killers, and you've come up and agreed with my good friend Dave McGowan, who wrote the book Program to Kill, that there is and we'll get to that maybe in a second, there is a significant amount of satanic ritual murders that are being covered up with these lone serial killers. I think that's where you were going with that. But you've also done a diagnostic on serial killers and their antisocial behavior and said that it sounds very much like what politicians have.
Oh, yeah, the same characteristics that we find in serial killers that created the profile of a serial killer. Those same characteristics exist in many of our politicians. They are narcissists. They are, to a certain degree, they are sociopaths. They do not really care about what's right or wrong. It's what's feasible at any certain point in their careers. They care about themselves. They really don't care about their families. They don't care about children. If they don't care about their own children, what makes us think they're going to care about ours?
Yeah. And then we got accused today of all being moonbat and howling at the moon because we believe in things like getting a birth certificate for our president and things. When these are the people that are so demented, don't they delude themselves, these politicians, our so-called leaders, Jim? Don't they delude themselves into believing that what they're doing is right so that they can put their head on their fluffy little pillow at night and go to bed?
Well, that's why I say that they have some of the same characteristics as serial killers. Serial killers, they can recognize right from wrong. They just don't care. They have no conscience. I've spoken to experts in the area of serial killers who actually talk to people like Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy and those people. And they say the same characteristics can be found in Washington, D.C. all too often.
And these are people who kill by the thousands. Let's keep that in mind. Wasn't it Stalin who says, one death is a tragedy, 1,000 deaths is a statistic?
Exactly. Even our media treats it that way. One child stuck in a well gets a lot of press attention, but 100 people mowed down by machine gun fire gets no attention. You look at Waco. How many people lost their jobs as a result of what happened at Waco? The Branch Davidian.
Lost their lives, you mean? Yeah.
I mean, nobody lost their jobs over that. In fact, Clinton was praised for his actions.
And it was Janet Reno and the rest of them. Yeah, that Clinton presidency was hell on earth here, and I believe we've just got Clinton redux here. That's the change that it was only 30% of America that allegedly voted him in, Jim. I mean, it's not, even if this was a democracy and it's a constitutional republic, still that's 30%. That's not even mob rule, and they've taken over here. The Kool-Aid was very tasty, though.
I think that Americans just are so disillusioned. They don't think that it's worth going to the polls anymore, because no matter who you get, a Democrat or a Republican, it doesn't matter anymore.
That's why it was 30%, Jim.
Some people like
50% didn't vote.
I did some work for Chuck Baldwin, Ron Paul. You have some people out there that would be excellent as president. But there's no way they're going to get in because the power structure is against them.
You do a lot of crunching of the numbers, and I'd like people to go read some of the things you write because you do it in such an objective way. You don't insert your own political opinions. You just put down the numbers and the facts, just the facts, ma'am. And I think you can learn a lot from reading what Jim writes. In fact, his website is jimkouri.us. Kouri is spelled Kouri, jimkouri.us. And Jim, I mean, it's fair to say we're not ideological twins here. We don't agree on everything, and maybe foreign policy might be the main one here. But but we agree on so much, and I think your head's in the right place. I wish you were leading the charge for all of these police around the country, because I think that we can get their heads screwed on right if we had you out there helping them to do it. Case point example, a good friend of mine, Celly Castile, I'm not sure if you're familiar with his work, but he's a Bronze Star winner in Vietnam. He was one of the most acclaimed and accomplished DEA agents in the history of the DEA. And he had since retired. He was busted here for selling guns without a license, which people do in gun shows every day here in Texas, and selectively prosecuted by our own government. And I assume that this is the thanks they're giving him for his decades of service. He's reporting to jail, I believe, today or tomorrow to serve a 2-year sentence for this ticky-tack fine. I mean, this must really discourage people out there who are trying to do their best, put their bodies, their lives in the way to protect us, and then they see this is how one of their own gets treated.
Well, you know, one of the biggest issues, and they try to downplay it, but gun control, and it's not gun control. They want to take guns away from Americans. They do not want us to have guns in our homes. They do not want us to be able to protect ourselves. And anyone who is for guns, they try to characterize them as buffoons. They try to marginalize them. They try to ridicule them. And the mainstream media is all part and parcel of that. You know, it reminds me of Pravda and the old Soviet Union. They all seem to be on the same page.
You know, at the same time, I mean, I live here near the border in Texas, Jim, and the people of Houston live even closer than I do. They were doing house-to-house gun checks, knocking on doors and asking you to justify your gun ownership in Houston. At the same time, they're telling you there is a massive, drug war raging just across the border. I mean, I know guns are just for hunting, but shouldn't we be able to protect ourselves against these roving hordes of people? You know, the people that did well in Hurricane Katrina, say what you want about that. Again, you talked about FEMA camps earlier. The Superdome turned into a FEMA camp right before your eyes.
Right.
But and then they ship people off to the Houston Superdome. But, I mean, with all of this rampant alleged terrorism, people coming across the borders, criminals running around everywhere, shouldn't we have the right to protect ourselves? Apparently not, according to our leaders.
No, they don't want us to kill their potential voters. They don't.
You know the old saying, Jim, hold on. You know the old saying, tyrants hate armed peasants, or they love unarmed peasants, and maybe that's how they see us, useless eaters, peasants. We'll come right back, wrap this up with Jim Kouri right after this. Stay tuned, folks.